You ever notice how your money seems to disappear faster in your 30s than it ever did in your 20s? Back then, you were broke, sure. But at least it made sense. You didn't have much, so you couldn't spend much. If your account was low, you knew why. Rent, food, maybe a few dumb purchases you regretted later. Simple, predictable. But now it's different. Now you have a real income, maybe the highest you've ever had. You're not living like a student anymore. You're more responsible, more stable, more experienced, and somehow it still feels like the end of every month shows up too fast. Bills, subscriptions, upgrades, random purchases, things you don't even remember buying. It all just stacks up quietly in the background until one day you check your account and think, how am I making more money but not getting ahead? And I think about this stuff way more than I probably should. My name is Nico, and I spend an unhealthy amount of time paying attention to money, habits, and the weird ways people slowly trap themselves financially without realizing it. Not because they're irresponsible, not because they're bad with money, but because they follow what feels normal. Your 30s are a strange decade. You're not starting anymore, but you're not finished either. This is the part where life looks stable from the outside, but underneath, the decisions you make quietly decide what the next 20 years are going to look like. And the crazy thing is, most people don't get stuck because of one huge mistake. It's smaller than that. Much smaller. It's the normal purchases, the things everyone else buys, the upgrades that feel harmless, the comforts that seem reasonable. There are certain things that feel completely fine to spend money on in your 30s, but they slow you down more than you realize. Not because you can't afford them, but because this is the exact stage of life where every dollar has the chance to turn into something bigger later. And most people trade that future without even noticing they did it. So this isn't about being cheap. It's about being aware. Because once you start noticing these patterns, you can't really unsee them. And honestly, that's when your finances start to change. One of the easiest ways to slow yourself down in your 30s is buying a car that makes you feel successful. Not because you love cars, not because you need it, but because it feels like you've earned the right to upgrade. You've been working for years now. You're not the broke kid anymore. You want something that looks like progress, something that makes it feel like all that effort meant something. And for a lot of people, that turns into a car payment. Not a crazy one, just enough to feel like an upgrade. Something nicer, something newer, something that fits the version of adulthood you imagined when you were younger. The problem is, car payments don't just take money, they take momentum. A few $100s a month doesn't sound like much when your income is higher, but month after month, year after year, that money could have been building something instead of losing value in your driveway. And the weird part is, the excitement doesn't last nearly as long as the payment does. You get used to the car. You don't get used to the bill. Your 30s aren't about impressing your past self. They're about protecting your future one. There's something sneaky about subscriptions. They don't feel like spending. They feel like background noise. $10 here, $15 there, a streaming service, an app, a membership, some cloud storage you forgot about, a free trial you never canceled. Nothing feels expensive, so nothing feels worth worrying about until you actually look. I remember going through my bank statement once and realizing I was paying for things I didn't even remember signing up for. Not because I was careless, just because life gets busy and canceling something feels like effort. And that's how money leaks in your 30s. Not in big dramatic moments, in quiet, forgettable ones. You don't need to cancel everything, but you should know where your money is going. Because anything you don't notice has a way of growing. In your 20s, your place just needs to work. In your 30s, it starts feeling like it needs to look right. Better couch, better TV, better kitchen stuff, nicer decorations, smarter gadgets, things that make your life look like the version of adulthood you pictured when you were younger. And none of this is bad. That's the tricky part. It all feels reasonable. It all feels deserved. But upgrades never end. You buy one thing, then something else looks old, then something else feels cheap. Then suddenly, you're spending thousands just to keep your life looking like it's moving forward. And half the time, nobody else even notices. Your home doesn't need to look perfect. It needs to give you breathing room, because financial breathing room feels better than nicer furniture ever will. This one sneaks up on people. When you're younger, eating out feels like fun. When you're older, it starts feeling like convenience. You're busy, you're tired, you don't want to cook. You tell yourself you'll make something tomorrow, and tomorrow turns into next week. Then, suddenly, restaurants, takeout, delivery, coffee, snacks, all of it just becomes normal. Not special, not exciting, just part of the routine. And routine spending is the most expensive kind. Not because one meal is a problem, but because the habit never stops. Your 30s are where normal habits decide your future. This one is harder to notice because it doesn't feel like spending. It feels like keeping up. Friends buying houses, co-workers getting promotions, people online showing perfect lives. You don't even realize it's happening, but part of you wants to feel like you're not behind. So you upgrade your phone, your clothes, your watch, your apartment, your vacations. Not because you need to, because you want to feel like you're doing okay. And the truth is, a lot of people who look successful are just better at spending. Real progress looks boring. It looks like savings. It looks like investments. It looks like saying no when everyone else says yes. And that doesn't get likes, but it builds freedom. This is probably the biggest one. You make more money, so you spend more money. New place, better car, nicer trips, more expensive habits. And every time your income goes up, your lifestyle grows just enough to match it, so you never feel ahead. Your 30s are the best decade to build momentum, but only if your spending doesn't grow as fast as your income. Otherwise, you stay in the same place, just with nicer stuff. Convenience is addictive. Delivery, ride apps, premium services, paying extra so you don't have to wait, paying extra so you don't have to cook, paying extra so you don't have to think. Individually, none of it seems like a big deal, but over years, convenience gets expensive. And sometimes we pay for convenience because we're tired from working so much to afford the convenience. That loop is hard to see until you step back. Your 30s aren't about avoiding convenience. They're about choosing it on purpose. Trying to save money by buying the cheapest option every time can cost more than buying once and being done. Shoes that wear out, furniture that breaks, electronics that don't last. You keep replacing things instead of moving forward. In your 30s, stability saves more money than bargains do. Durability is underrated. Late-night scrolling is expensive. Not big purchases, small ones. Stuff you didn't plan, stuff you didn't need, stuff you forget about in a week. It doesn't feel like spending because it's digital, but your bank account still knows. Your 30s require more intentional spending than your 20s did. Not less fun, just less autopilot. Sometimes we spend because we don't want to think. Long week, bad day, feeling stuck, feeling tired, so you buy something, order something, upgrade something, and for a moment it feels good. But if that becomes your habit, you never build the future you actually want, because the future you want requires a little discomfort now. Not forever, just long enough to build momentum. Your 30s aren't about being perfect. They're about being aware. This is the decade where small decisions turn into big outcomes, not overnight, not dramatically, but slowly, quietly, in the background while life keeps moving. Most people don't stay broke because they're reckless. They stay broke because they follow the default path. Spend what you earn. Upgrade when you can. Keep up with everyone else. And the default path feels normal until you realize it keeps you stuck. You don't need to stop buying everything. You just need to stop buying things that don't move your life forward. Because in your 30s, every dollar you keep has time to grow. Every habit you build has time to compound. Every decision you make now shows up later, whether you notice it or not. And the people who understand that early don't look different right away. But 10 years later, it shows.